What's happening, YouTube? Anthony on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film with a brand new PRLostGalaxy2014 review on Hasbro's Marvel Legends retro carded Fantastic Four, the animated series She-Hulk. And I got this from GameStop for about 30 bucks, even though the price tag says $29.99. Well, if you're a pro member, get it for $28.99. But you know, if you're not a pro member for GameStop, get it for about that amount of price, close to 30. And now this She-Hulk was a figure I picked up out of curiosity because I just like the way how they just made her so hot and glamorous and very, very 90s of this figure. Due to the fact that, again, back in the 90s, I wasn't really huge on Fantastic Four until like the 2000s. I was aware of the Fantastic Four. How I first heard of them was actually through the 90s Spider-Man animated series when they did their adaptation of the Secret Wars storyline in the 5th and last season of the 90s Spider-Man animated series. Now, the Fantastic Four in the 90s, well, then again, comic books in general, especially Marvel, was at an all-time low with things. So I wasn't really, again, I wasn't huge on the Fantastic Four back in the day. Again, until the 2000s with the likes of the earlier two Fantastic Four movies of the 2000s with Chris Evans and all that. But then not only that, I've always liked the Fantastic Four as a Marvel superhero team since they are Marvel's first family and all. And with the fact that, you know, to coincide with the release of the new Fantastic Four First Steps movie that just came out this summer, I figured, all right, let me get me some Fantastic Four stuff. I did have some Fantastic Four toys in the 2000s, mostly for the 2005 Fantastic Four movie, but never really had anything since that. Until this point, with Hasbro doing Marvel Legends, retro carded, throwing back to the 90s Marvel comic stuff with the animated stuff, with this rendition of She-Hulk from that cartoon. Yeah, She-Hulk had appeared in the Incredible Hulk the Incredible Hulk animated series from the 90s, the same time as Fantastic Four, at some capacity, but I didn't think that they would actually put her with the Fantastic Four, because she got a Fantastic Four uniform on, and yeah, but again, I've only watched only a few episodes of the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't something to write home about at the time, and especially for its time. But again, I wasn't really big on characters like the Fantastic Four, because back in the 90s when it came to Marvel characters, I was only more about X-Men. I was only about Spider-Man and the X-Men growing up when their cartoons were going on in the 90s. So when the Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, Silver Surfer, and the Fantastic Four all had cartoons out in the 90s, I wasn't big on characters like the Fantastic Four or Iron Man or She-Hulk. But I've always been about the Hulk too, but you know, it's just in general, some of those characters I wouldn't be big on until decades later. But man, if the She-Hulk looks so effing hot, and given that big amount of green hair and that hairstyle that's very reminiscent of all the women with big hair in the 90s, especially comic book women in the 90s with that big hair and that smile and that glamorous face on them and stuff. And when I saw this at GameStop, I was like, I gotta get this, because this screamed 90s, because it's a throwback to that. And since I am a 90s kid, and after all. So here's the front of the package, throwing way back to how, if you have collected some of Toy Biz's Fantastic Four toys way back in the day in the 90s, and other Marvel comic stuff back in the 90s, like animated series, X-Men and Spider-Man toys back then in the 90s, this is that throwing back to those toys. So here's that, and then also the back of the package, with the detailing about how when the Thing chooses to take a leave of absence from the team, She-Hulk puts her strength to the best, to the test as a member of as a new member of the Fantastic Four. So she was taking over at some point of the Thing's place when Ben Grimm, aka the Thing, wasn't part of the team for a while or anymore at all. So So yeah, that's what that story was about and why the She-Hulk figure had to happen. Even though, again, I didn't watch a lot of the 90s animated Fantastic Four show per se. I was about to say movie, but there was a 90s Fantastic Four movie from 1994, 95, but we don't talk about it. But with that being said, let's take a look at She-Hulk in all her sensational, glamorous, so 90s glory. Alright, now that we got She-Hulk out of that package, let's take a look at some accessories that she came with. First, these barbell accessories. Okay, so if she wants to work out and lift more weights and build more muscle, these are good and handy to do, unless for a weapon or just for simple working out. Interchangeable hands. As default, you got this one hand where she does the bunny, the bunny ears, gang sign, or it can look like a gang sign, either your preference. Then you got all these other hands, you got a thumb up, got the thumb up, or you can have the, thumb down gesture for her, so there's that. And then her open hand gesture. So you got those hands to switch out of. Then next we have to talk about the alternate head for She-Hulk. When you get her out of the package, this ponytail comes out as a separate, separate plastic, and this head comes out. So what got me, especially looking at the two different She-Hulk heads that she came with. Now, something about these heads look oddly familiar, despite that this is based off the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon. Something about the likenesses just scream Hollywood actresses that were huge at the time and some that were getting big at the time. When I looked at the packaging, especially when I went to GameStop and got this, I was like, when I saw this, when I saw the big-haired She-Hulk head, I was like, why does she look? I mean, she looks a lot like if Cindy Crawford or Julia Roberts were both She-Hulk, but this head made me think of Angelina Jolie, if Angelina Jolie was She-Hulk for the time, especially when she was starting out acting. And yeah, because it kind of did remind me a little bit of Angelina Jolie in some angles with this facial expression, especially the smirk and all, because it did look almost like Angelina Jolie to me. But this looked more like if Cindy Crawford or Julia Roberts were to be She-Hulk, if there was a 90s She-Hulk movie to be made back then, because again, remember, back in the 90s, they were trying to make certain, Marvel superheroes into, big blockbuster movies, like James Cameron's unrealized Spider-Man movie that could have been in the 90s with Leonardo DiCaprio, Spider-Man, and then heck, even Cannon was going to do an X-Men movie, but that never materialized either. And then there was also this one legend had it fabled attempt of trying to do a She-Hulk movie with Bridget Nielsen in it. And yeah, but either way, but they just tried to, do those attempts. But again, remember how Marvel was in the 90s, and even I was a very little kid, and I didn't know none of this stuff until Wikipedia and all that nowadays. But nevertheless, I really like the retro throwing back to She-Hulk, and I'm thinking about probably doing the Fantastic Four, all of them in this wave of figures too for Marvel Legends when I get the chance. But I just really love how glamorous, sensational, and sexy that this She-Hulk looks, and I'm really impressed with Hasbro and the Marvel Legends team for pulling this figure off, because this figure is perhaps one of my favorite female Marvel Legends figures so far, but I just can't get enough of this She-Hulk. I mean, I wish they made women like this again. I wish women had hair like this again, feminine facial features like this again. But I know, and if you're a guy and you're not into bodybuilder women, well, my condolences. But I just can't get enough of seeing She-Hulk with that big ass hair and the face, and just, oh my god. I know, I'm just gushing about it because it's just, when I saw this figure at GameStop a few weeks ago, I was like, I'm in love already. And because yeah, I mean, they really did a good job on this, because I wish that if you know, seeing this figure, I just think that Hasbro needs to do female face molds and hair molds like this. If you're going to throw back to an era that you're trying to recreate and capture from Marvel Comics' history, but particularly the 90s, because yeah, I guess the 80s too, especially like what Todd McFarlane did with Spider-Man and them back in the 80s and early 90s. But I just kind of think that you really do need to do more female figure molds with hair as big like this, because lately for the last 2 years or so, I've been on a huge fix of wanting to see women with big, luscious, big ass, long hair, throwing back to that era that's, well, bygone, of women that looked like that back in the day. Nowadays, women just look like, try to be like the next Kim Kardashian, or the next Doja Cat, or the next Ariana Grande or whatever. But I just wish that we would go back. I wish we had women that had hair and facial features like this again. It's sad, but changing of the times and all. Anyway, so now let's take a look at some of the the painting and detail critiques. I like the way how they capture the lime green feel for She-Hulk, because this is how she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be more bright green as opposed to Bruce Banner's Hulk, where he has that dark green, or depending on whatever shade of green the Hulk, Bruce Banner's Hulk is supposed to be. Since after all, Hulk and She-Hulk are basically cousins or something like that, similar to like Superman and Supergirl being cousins. Kal-El, like Kara and Clark being cousins from Krypton. But that's supposed to be that shade of green on her. So yeah, but it's just like, man, she is so badass and sexy at the same time, and I love it. I really, really do. All right, so let's take a look at articulation. Since I do like that long hair, but here's the bad part. You can't turn her, actually you can, but due to the mass amount of hair on the back, you're not going to do much of that. Especially on this side either. So you can just turn her head this way or this way, honey, something like that. But I can see if I also had Rogue from the 90s X-Men, or X-Men 97, either way, and same ordeal there too. And even Storm from the 90s X-Men animated series also, or X-Men 97. Yeah, but just look at the flexibility of this woman. Of course, elbow crunch. Well, since this is a female mold again, the elbow crunch is what you expect for female molds. So just have her flex like that, or just like this, posing her like this. And then as for the legs, of course you can like lift her legs up and down, like doing that stretching and stuff. And man, I can't believe she's been working out and hitting them Pilates that hard. Damn. Okay, then knee crunch. The knee crunch is what you would expect, since this is once again Hasbro doing the pinless joint, the pinless jointed Marvel figures that they've been doing since 2023, 2024. So there is no pinned joints. So this is once again another Marvel Legends that I've reviewed with the pinless joints. And since this is supposed to be what, 7, I feel like this is like 7 inches tall, because when you think about it, I wish I had a figure I can compare. I wish I had a figure I could use to compare this with, but just looking at the size of the She-Hulk, I mean, she's like roughly 7 inches taller compared to this Ultimate Iron Man, which I've reviewed a while ago. But Ultimate Iron Man is still regularly 6 inches. But She-Hulk feels like, given her height, she is about 7 inches tall. Like, literally straight up 7 inches tall. I kid you not. She kind of is. So, my final verdict on 90s animated Fantastic Four, She-Hulk. 2 thumbs up. Definitely one of my favorite action figures of 2025, and one of my favorite Marvel Legends that I've reviewed in a long shot, bar none, because I just had to get this figure, because I was like, man, seeing the heads and seeing what she came with, but especially the damn hair. The hair is what really gave it away for me, because I'm a sucker for women who have big, long hair like this, like they're some glamorous supermodel of the era. And again, I wish we brought that fashion statement of hair like this back for women, period. I wish we brought that back. So anyway, that's it for my review on She-Hulk from the 90s Fantastic Four animated series from Hasbro's Marvel Legends. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, drop a like, share this video with your friends, and I'll see you guys next time with a brand new review.